Good afternoon. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission, Friday, July 12th at 2 p.m. Roll call vote, please. Roll call, please, from the secretary.
Commissioner Stockdale,
Here.
Commissioner Ellison,
Here.
Commissioner Davies,
Here.
Commissioner Hunter,
Here.
Commissioner Strange,
Here.
Commissioner Stewart,
Here.
myself, Commissioner Dewey, here, Commissioner Gay,
Here.
and Commissioner Bryan.
Here. We have a full house. Welcome. Ms. Womack, would you please give us the verification of meeting notice?
The agenda was posted in City Hall and on the city portal on June 26th. It was amended and reposted on June 28th and also on July 9th. That's all I have, Chair.
All right. Any other correspondence?
Not since yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. We were here yesterday. The purpose of today's meeting is the continuation of the public hearing of and possible vote on the site plan review application number 1221-05 for Belhaven Hotel, located at 2 Rehoboth Avenue. If I could, just to briefly, my goal is to get to a vote today. That means I need the cooperation of those in attendance in terms of how long things take to get to that point. If you're here to speak as a member of the public, you will be asked to speak first, and would ask that you not repeat any information that, or testimony that you've previously given to the commission. Just limit your remarks, if you would, to new information that we don't already have or have not heard before. And so with that, I'd like to go ahead and, I apologize, in terms of scheduling as well for this meeting, there will be a brief response, an opportunity for a brief response by the applicant, any closing argument, any submission of additional documents in order to complete the record. All right. You want to proceed?
Yeah.
Public comment, please. Who would like to speak?
Either way.
Yeah, either way, that's
Either
fine.
way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dr. Michael Treos. I'm one of the co-owners of the properties located at 7 through 15 South Boardwalk and 1 Wilmington Avenue, which are the adjacent properties to the Belhaven Hotel site to the southeast of that location. I'd like to show a brief PDF slide here. If Ann, could you do me a favor of activating the screen, please? Very good. What I'd like to do is notate something which is new information. When Commissioner Strange had submitted his comments to the applicant, and then the applicant responded, and those were then filed with the city, Commissioner Strange had noted and was quotating a geotechnical report that I was not even aware even existed. I had searched through all of the commission records, the city records, everything, could not find it. Contacted the city, and from what I'm beginning to ascertain, again, this is my interpretation of what transpired, this report was completed on April 1, 2023, and submitted to the city at that time. However, 2022, April 1, 2022. However, the planning commission meeting of April 2022 was canceled. And so it is very likely that this report was just simply inadvertently not added to the public record. Having contacted the city, and with the great cooperation of Ann, who's wonderful all the time, was able to find the report, and it has finally been now added for the first time to the public record. This is a 137-page geotechnical report that deals with core drillings and a lot of issues that are relevant to our discussion here. In particular, what I'd like to do is just discuss the results of this study momentarily here. So, as you will see here, there was a core drilling done, and you'll see the locations and how this was done. In particular, I'm most interested in this area here, which would be the Wilmington area side. There were 5 core drills supposedly done. According to the report, we're not able to find the B4 core drill reports. There was an additional one done at B6, which would be adjacent to the Go Fish property, which would be where Allison Blythe has her property located. What I found interesting here is that it was, I believe, in May of 2024, the chief engineer for the applicant made a notation in their plans that the building height measurement point, the BHMP, was at a +13, and that the water table was at a +4. You may recall I then had stated that if we take those measurements and subtract them, that means that the water table was at 9 feet below the level. However, that is only applicable to only one of the core drills. When we go and we look carefully at the results of the core drill, and again, this is another indication where they had noted that the majority of the core drills that on the entire property were between 8.5 and 9.5 feet down. If we look at the B1 core drill, the water table was at 8 feet. If we look at the B2 core drill, it was at 8 feet. If we look at the B3 core drill, that's at 9+ feet. We look at the B5 drill, that's about 8 and probably 8 3/4. And if we look at the B6 drill, that's at 8 feet also. And then we look at the B7 core drill, that's at 9 feet. So the point of this discussion here that I'm having is that the water table is much closer to the surface than was originally reported by the chief engineer at being only at 9 feet, when in reality, if we go back to this drawing here, with the exception of the center core here, the rest of these are at pretty much 8 feet. Now, what's the significance of this? Additionally in the report, and again, it's 137 pages long, it was only posted on Tuesday. I've not had the opportunity to read additionally what's going on in that report, but what was noted is that an analysis of the people who did this analysis noted that they anticipate a significant amount of water intrusion to be occurring at the site, and that part of their analysis also noted that there would be likely the need to have hydraulic pumps to get the water out and to keep ahead of the water intrusion into the site. Now, that raises multiple issues. What does it raise? Well, for one issue, and that again would be, this is the city's input to this, would be if you're now going to be pumping significant amount of subterranean water that's intruding into the site, how does that get discharged? Does it get discharged into the stormwater system of the city? Or is there going to be some other way by which all that water is going to have to be evacuated out of the site? I have no idea how that's going to happen. That would have to be between the applicant and the city. But more important for myself is that we have to remember there is a natural hemodynamic and natural relationship with earth soils and subterranean water tables. For 125 years, my properties have existed in a natural hemostasis with not having any problem whatsoever with, shall we say, hydrostatic liquefaction or any sort of collapse of my properties whatsoever. But I then have a concern with what happens when we start to pump water out of the water table, because that water is now going to come into the site, it's going to be pumped out. And as you may recall, I believe it was back in April of, let me see the exact date, I believe it was that I had discussed this. It was April 12th of 2024. I had raised the issue of what happened at the Washington Monument with the construction of the African American Museum. And as you may recall, at that time, they were concerned about the collapse of the collapse of the Washington Monument as a result of a significant intrusion of water into the pit where the parking garage was going to be for the African American Museum. And as they were pumping the water out, all of a sudden, the subterranean water dropped, and all of a sudden, there was their concern for liquefaction collapse of the Washington Monument. On a smaller scale, I'm having the same concern right now when I see this. Because right now, I'm concerned that if indeed extensive amount of water gets pulled out, I may have a problem with regard to potential collapse of the earth soils underneath my properties and starts to go down. This has not been addressed at all whatsoever. And again, this is a very much a concern for me. So what I would like to say is the following. If indeed this site plan is approved, I feel that there must be conditions added, mandatory conditions added before a site plan vote can be occurred. One, there would be internal and external documentation, both written and with photography, of all the adjacent properties prior to construction. Two, there would be a commitment, a written commitment, to repairing any construction-related damage to the adjacent properties during and post-construction. Three, there needs to be seismic monitoring installed on the adjacent properties. Now, freezing on that one for a moment, where do we see an importance of that? Well, at the July 8th Mayor and Commissioners meeting that just recently happened, they had a review of the Beach Patrol Headquarters construction. During that review, and during the construction apparently, during the pounding of the timber pilings, the Admiral Hotel suffered seismic vibration damage. And the project had to be ceased and stopped immediately. The investigation went in as to what happened to that construction, what happened, what are the damages, what was going on. Then once that was all ascertained and repairs were initiated, the construction was allowed then to proceed. I'm quite confident that, I'm hoping that that will not happen, but unfortunately, I believe that there is likely going to be seismic vibration damage occurring to the adjacent properties. Therefore, the appropriate seismic monitoring must be installed. As I just alluded to you with regard to the African American Museum and the Washington Monument, I believe also what needs to be as a condition is GPS altimeter monitoring installations on the adjacent properties. These are precise GPS devices which can monitor altitude, height of the buildings, and even small incremental drops in the of the properties that is sinking into the ground based on true GPS data information. I truly believe that, again, based on the Hills-Carnes geotechnical report and the concerns that I have with that again, this GPS altimeter installation should be done in order to make sure and monitor that there is no collapse of the earth soils underneath the adjacent properties. Lastly, and as was stated at the July 8th, 2024 Mayor and Commissioners meeting, a unique situation exists with the contractor and the adjacent property owners. They're all talking to each other. They are all attending together biweekly meetings. They are invited, that is the construction team is inviting the adjacent property owners to attend all of the construction. This is probably going from the permit phase all the way through in order to keep track of what's going on with their construction and the adjacent properties in order to have cooperation in that regard. So therefore, I would again want as a condition that is understood that the applicant will entertain and work with the applicants both during the permit and construction phase so that we can all be on the same page and therefore detect any problems early, deal with them early, and get this hotel built the way it's supposed to be. That's the end of my discussion. Do I have any questions?
I think Jimmy Buffett's calling in. Does anyone have any questions of Dr. Trejos? Hearing none. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
For those who may have arrived late, this is the public comment section of this meeting. We moved that up on the agenda. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir.
My name is Mark Marderwald. Been a lifeguard for 34 years. When I wasn't lifeguarding, I was performing some kind of construction, usually heavy construction. Over those 34 years, I installed a bulkhead underneath the boardwalk from Funland all the way past the 1 Virginia Avenue building. In 2005, I basically rebuilt the Lewis wastewater treatment plant. It took me 2 years, and I had ended my consecutive years of life saving because I just couldn't take that next summer off. I was the only crane operator they had. The company was from New York. They hired me, the first, before they even started. And if I had left, they would have had to call New York, get another crane operator down, and once he came, he would have probably never wanted to leave, so I wouldn't have gotten back in. But we did a lot of dewatering. We dewatered the Lewis wastewater treatment plant almost the whole time I was there. I had to go in every Sunday and refill the pumps that did the dewatering. We built most of the newer buildings you see in the diet that were showed on Monday of the wastewater treatment plant. I built almost all those buildings. As far as this Bellevue Motel, I see no problem with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I just want to say that I hope that you move forward and approve
Is
this
your mic
application.
on, Rick? Is your microphone on?
Yeah, it
Okay.
is. I just want to say that I hope you move forward and approve this application. It's been well over 5 years since it's been presented to the Planning Commission. I think that the applicants have made substantial change along the way as requested by the various iterations of the Planning Commission. And this is an important project for the future of this city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Paul Kamowski. I'm a full-time resident here in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and I totally disagree with the gentleman just spoke. I think you all would vote no on this project. And I'm actually shocked that there's no more public people here voting against this. I live in Rehoboth Beach now at Patrician Towers, 8 Olive Avenue, right behind the Boardwalk Plaza Hotel. And what the first gentleman spoke to about the vibration going on now at the bathrooms and the things, we felt it in our building. And we actually have cracks in our building. I believe something needs to be done about that. And who do we talk to? I don't know. I believe the gentleman was right, because when you start drilling those pilings, all we heard was boom, boom, boom. And I understand there was a delay in that, just like he said, because they hit water. And it's my understanding that now, I believe the City Hall had problems when they dug their foundation too, that was on delay, and it came like $1 million over budget for everything. And now that place there, the bathrooms are like $100,000 or $500,000 over budget because of the pilings and when you hit the subterranean level with the earth being disturbed. And I'm really concerned about the areas behind them, around there. Also, I have a quick question about the delivery trucks. I saw online last night they only have one delivery dock. Right now, the Boardwalk Plaza in between Obies, all I hear all day long, beep, 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 beep. All them trucks have to turn around at First Street. They come and back up in our driveway. After they make their deliveries, they block the people. We can't get out of our driveway or underground parking garage. Same people that are parked on the street, they have to sit there and wait for everything to come out of there. The other thing, I believe you're about to change the character of Rehoboth Beach. Also, you're going to change the skyline of Rehoboth Beach. Because not only if you approve this project, you're going to go across the street, have another building built there on that corner too, And then we're going to go down to the Sands Hotel and go down Baltimore Avenue and change that skyline. And then we're going to go to the First Street and State Street and change that property too for a hotel. I believe these projects are too big for the city. I believe we do need change, and change is good for everybody, but I think this is just way too much too soon. Also, I understand that people want to give up 10 parking spaces. The city was in the meeting yesterday. Come on now. We all know how parking is. We're all fighting for parking every single day here in the city. And you want to give up 10 parking spaces, a public property? That just doesn't sound right to me, that everybody will want parking spaces then. So the other thing, really like to know how this property got approved by the Army Corps of Engineers to change the flood zone, that it's not in a flood zone no more. That is beyond me, beyond me. Oceanfront property is not in a floodplain no more. I don't know any oceanfront town that's not in a floodplain. We all remember the storm of '62, which took out the original Belhaven Hotel. Maybe it's going to happen again. I don't know. How can that be in a floodplain? It's oceanfront property. You know, I understand it's approved now. How that got approved, I don't know. But some of the other things, you're all scared of threat of litigation, which was in yesterday's meeting. That shouldn't influence your influence. We found $750,000 to pay our new $1 million city manager. Maybe you can find $750,000 to pay a lawyer's fee to fight them if you all vote no for it. These are just some of my comments on everything that's going on. That's just my opinion. I think you ought to vote no, have more discussion. I think it should be downsized some, because not only are you going to do this, you're going to cross the street, down from the Sands, and then down you're going to go to First Street. You're changing the whole skyline of Rehoboth Beach. You know what I mean? It's not the quaint little town that it used to be when I moved here 25 years ago. I mean, there's a reason why Cape May, New Jersey survives. You don't see any high-rises there. Charleston, South Carolina, these other little cities, they survive on the original character that they were built on. That's just my opinion. I'm asking you to vote no.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, I'll close the public comment section of the meeting. I'd like to see a vote. Is there a motion? Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Mr. Forston, my apologies. My apologies. I didn't mean to cut you
Not a
off.
problem. I know.
It's not that you haven't been given ample opportunity over the last 3 or 4 years, but yes, sir. Please speak.
Well, I appreciate all of that. There were two things yesterday that I said I would do, and I've done them. So I just wanted to follow up real quickly on those. I've got now those parking columns, I've got the photos labeled where they are, Gerard Place, Crosswinds, and that sort of thing. So I've got 3 sets, one for the secretary, one for the town, and then one for the commission.
And they're to be made part of the record, is that correct?
Yes, sir, thank you.
Okay, then we're going to give you back your unlabeled ones if you like. Okay. All right.
And then the other thing I said I would do, I was out there today, it was drizzling, but I measured the distance, the width of Wilmington Avenue, as I said I would. Those parking spots, as you'll recall, are head-in parking spots. Between the back of the 2 parking spots, it is 41 feet and like an inch or 2. So it's more than the 38 that the fire marshal wanted, so I think we can all feel better about that. And then just really briefly, I think this has been a very robust process, and I think there's been a lot of good comments and a lot of good take, and I'll just close by observing that I've been doing land use and real estate development now for 30-some years, more years than I care to admit. And the thing that really strikes me about this project, and that strikes me about the Papa John family and what they're trying to do here, this is a labor of love for them. You know, you've heard some of his stories. He's got tons of fabulous stories about growing up in Rehoboth and growing up in the old Belhaven. If this was somebody just, I'm going to say, in it for the money and just wanted to maximize their return, you would not be getting nearly this building. And there are a lot of things in the architectural details that we've talked about and otherwise. I mean, maintaining all the commercial space on the boardwalk and on Rehoboth, that's important to the Papa John family that somebody that didn't care about Rehoboth might not be doing. And I say all of this because if at times I have seemed passionate or extra perhaps enthusiastic in supporting this project, it's because I'm really impressed by what the Papa John family is trying to do here. I will simply close by saying that we believe this project complies with the code. I know there's been some disagreements. We wouldn't be here with this plan if we didn't think it complied with the code. We wouldn't be asking your approval if we didn't think it complied with the code. We'd still be talking to the building inspector and making any necessary tweaks to make sure that it complied with the code. But we believe this plan does comply with the code. We ask that you approve it. There's been some concerns raised going forward about construction and all. I mean, a lot of those issues will get addressed when construction drawings are done and the construction sequencing is put in place. And certainly, as you've heard previously, it is our intent to monitor everything, keep our neighbors informed. But again, this plan, we believe, complies, wouldn't be here otherwise. It's a labor of love for the Papa John family, and we ask that you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. How about a motion?
Okay, ready? You're going to have to bear with me. There are a number of statements and conditions that I need to state here. But I move to approve site plan review application 1221-05 of Belhaven Investments regarding the project to be located at 2 Rehoboth Avenue, specifically as set forth as amended and submitted to the city in A, Bowler's Revision 7, dated January 12, 2024, and B, Falat Architecture's May 10, 2024 revisions. Subject to the following: changes, conditions, and restrictions. A, additional approvals under federal law. Prior to the issuance of any building permit for the project, or if not possible prior to the issuance of the building permit, as soon thereafter as is reasonably practicable, applicants shall demonstrate compliance with and obtain all permits, approvals, and agreements for the project required by applicable federal laws, including but not limited to federal or international building laws or regulations, any applicable federal stormwater runoff or point source discharge laws or regulations, applicable FEMA laws and regulations regarding design standards, any encroachment of the applicable building line, and a sufficient number of emergency exits for the underground parking garage. B, additional approvals under state law. Again, prior to the issuance of any building permit, or if not possible prior to the issuance of the building permit, as soon thereafter as is practicable. The applicant shall demonstrate compliance with, obtain all permits, approvals, and agreements for the project required by the state of Delaware laws, including but not limited to state building laws and regulations, state stormwater runoff or point source discharge laws or regulations, any DNREC approval required for the underpinning activity, any additional state fire marshal approvals or conditions regarding the maximum safe number of inhabitants per proposed hotel room, the installation of a second fire department connection and a second lockbox as specified in the State Fire Marshal letter to Peter Falat dated April 17, 2023, at locations to be agreed upon by the State Fire Marshal and the Chief of Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Company, plus the 8 terms specified in the April 4, 2023 letter from Peter Falat to the Fire Marshal, and the use of any batteries in connection with the proposed solar panels on the roof of the proposed structure, and a sufficient number of emergency exits for the underground parking garage, any DELDOT approval regarding the project's impact on vehicular or pedestrian traffic, any additional preliminary land use service, that's plus review and approval by the Office of State Planning Coordination, and any access or easement agreements with neighboring property owners or the city that may be required in connection with designing, surveying, constructing, stabilizing, maintaining, repairing, modifying, or using the proposed structure. C, additional improvements, approvals under county law. Prior to the issuance of any building permit, or if not possible before the issuance of the building permit, as soon thereafter as reasonably practicable, the applicant shall demonstrate compliance with and obtain all permits, approvals, and agreements for the project required by applicable Sussex County laws and regulations, including but not limited to the approval from the Sussex County Conservation District regarding stormwater management. D, additional approvals under city law. There's quite a few of these as well. Prior to the issuance of any building permit for the project, or if not possible, before the issuance of the building permit, as soon thereafter as is practicable, applicant shall demonstrate compliance with and obtain all permits and approvals and agreements for the projects required by applicable City of Rehoboth laws and regulations, including but not limited to Code Chapter 102 on building construction, a license from the city for the proposed awning encroachment into and over public property pursuant to City Code Chapter 102, City Code Chapter 159, flood damage reduction, City Code Chapter 215, restaurants, City Code Chapter 220 on sewers and water, City Code Chapter 206, pools, City Code Chapter 253, trees, City Code Chapter 270, Article 7, signs, City Code Chapter 232, streets and sidewalks, including specifically provisions 232-43, 44, 45, 46, and 47, plus the maximum safe number of inhabitants per proposed hotel room and any access or easement agreements with neighboring property owners or the city that may be required in connection with designing, surveying, constructing, stabilizing, maintaining, repairing, or using the proposed structure. E, review and approval by independent structural and geotechnical engineer. As a condition of this approval, prior to the issuance of any building permit by the city related to the proposed structure, an independent, qualified structural and geotechnical engineer shall be retained to assist the building inspector in reviewing all proposed design and construction drawings for consistency with all applicable building codes. No building permit shall be issued by the city until the independent structural and geotechnical engineer has reviewed and approved all final design and construction drawings submitted by the applicant. Copies of any written review or approval by the independent structural and geotechnical engineer shall be furnished to the Planning Commission at least 14 days prior to the issuance of a building permit. F, review and approval by independent city-retained floodplain expert. As a condition of this approval and prior to the issuance of a building permit by the city, an independent qualified floodplain expert shall be retained to assist the city's floodplain administrator in reviewing all proposed design and construction drawings for consistency with all applicable requirements for constructing the proposed structures at this location, including in the AO and AE flood zones. No building permit shall be issued by the city until the independent floodplain expert has reviewed and approved all final design and construction drawings submitted by the applicant. Copies of any written review or approval by the independent floodplain expert shall be furnished to the Planning Commission at least 14 days prior to the issuance of a building permit. I'm almost done. G, lot consolidation. Prior to the issuance of any building permit for the proposed project, applicants shall submit an appropriate application and obtain approval from the Rehoboth Beach Planning Commission to consolidate the lots as may be necessary pursuant to City Code Chapter 236. H, amendments to site plans or drawings. Any amendments to the proposed site plan, including any modifications to the drawings, shall be submitted to the Planning Commission at the same time they are submitted to any city official for review and are expressly subject to additional approvals as may be required pursuant to City Code Section 236-33.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second. Commissioner Hunter?
I second.
Second. Any discussion at this point?
I'd like to propose an amendment.
We're basically at what I would call the generic approval motion at this point.
All right.
Yeah, so we need to act on this motion before.
No, we don't act on it. We might want to discuss it.
Discussion on,
Oh, okay.
discussion on this motion.
Yeah.
If individuals want to amend it, they can amend it.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah,
All right, go forward.
yeah.
I don't have a discussion on this. I have an amendment, so I'll wait.
Okay, there you go. Any discussion on this motion? Is there an amendment?
And just to be clear, procedurally, if individuals want to make an amendment to the motion, that motion to amend needs to be seconded, discussed, and then voted on. If the amendment passes, it gets added to the motion that was just made by Ms. Gay. If the amendment, proposed amendment is voted down or does not achieve a majority, then it is not added to the motion. And whenever you're done all your amendments, then the amended motion gets voted on. All by roll call, by the way, and please state your reasons for your votes, one way or the other.
So are we voting on Susan's?
No, we're going to do that.
Okay, so I'd like to propose an amendment.
Yes, please.
Concerning drop-off zones. As a condition of this approval, prior to the issuance of a building permit for the proposed project, or if not feasible, prior to the, as soon as practicably thereafter, applicant shall obtain approval from the City of Rehoboth Beach, including consistent with 22 Delaware Code Section 708, with regard to any laying out, alteration, relocation, abandonment, or discontinuance of a portion of any public way resulting from or related to the project's proposed drop-off zone on Wilmington Avenue for arriving and departing hotel patrons as depicted in the drawings.
All right, you've heard the proposed amendment. Is there a motion to approve? Are you going ahead? Did you make that as a motion
I made that as a motion
to amend?
to amend.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion of the proposed amendment?
I'd like to discuss it.
Please.
I have significant concern about a project that is building a portion of its project on land it doesn't own. And I see it as greater than just asking the city to get rid of a few parking spaces. It's going to affect the sidewalk. It's going to affect businesses on both sides. It affects safety. And frankly, parking is a premium in the city. And other hotels in the city, to my knowledge, the more recent particularly, have their drop-off zones within the land they own.
Any other discussion? Are we prepared to vote on the amendment? All right, could I have a roll call vote, please?
Roll call vote for the amendment as proposed by Commissioner Stewart. Commissioner Stockdale?
Aye.
Commissioner,
Reason
and
as well.
reasons, please?
You should state your reasons for your vote for each amendment, and at the very end, you should state your reasons for whatever you're going to do on the motion.
I approve of the amendment for many of the same reasons that Susan just stated, particularly those related to concerns about use of property owned by others and loss of parking spaces.
Commissioner Ellison?
I vote yes, based upon essentially the same arguments that Mr. Stockdale just stated.
Commissioner Davis?
I vote to approve, also subscribing to the same reasons that Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Stockdale gave.
Commissioner Hunter?
I vote yes, also on those same reasons, especially my concerns with regard to parking and safety.
Commissioner Strange?
I vote yes for all the reasons stated, and I think this just is a further clarification of the original motion.
Commissioner Stewart?
I vote yes for the reasons I stated.
Myself, Commissioner Dewey, I vote yes. I believe it is important that prior to the issuance of any building permits, that the questions as defined by the motion be completely addressed. Commissioner Gay
I vote yes for the reasons stated by my colleagues.
and Commissioner Bryan.
Yes, I vote yes for the reasons stated as well. as there may be a loss of revenue to the city if unless the city is appropriately compensated for parking spaces used by a private concern.
All right. That concludes the vote. Commissioner Bryan, all have favored passage of the motion.
All right. The first possible amendment, the First Amendment is therefore adopted. Are there other amendments?
Yes,
Yes, Commissioner Hunter.
I have an amendment with regard to the size of parking spaces, which we have discussed. I want to ask the chair's indulgence for a second because I want to look at the materials that Mr. Forston submitted this morning with these photographs that are labeled, and they are all similar photographs. But I wanted to be sure to look at them since he brought them in and consider them. My motion with regard to the size of parking spaces. City Code Section 27030A requires that each parking space in the proposed parking garage shall consist of not less than 162 square feet of usable area for each vehicle, and the dimensions thereof shall be not less than 9 feet in width and 18 feet in width. The code language specifically uses the word usable, and as a condition of this approval, applicant shall either demonstrate with additional detailed drawings compliance with that section, which is to say that the size of each space measures no less than 162 square feet, exclusive of columns or other fixed structures. That is, there may be a column based in a space, but if the remaining space usable is no less than 162 square feet, it would be compliant, and if not, it would not be. So alternatively shall demonstrate that compliance, which is, or alternatively, obtain a variance from the requirements of this code section by the court, by the city's Board of Adjustment. That's my motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion of the Second Amendment?
Well, let me just speak briefly. I don't have measurements for the photographs that Mr. Forston submitted. I can see from simply looking at them that they are of parking spaces where there is the base of a column, so I can't speak as to whether the remaining usable space satisfies a requirement, nor do I know from simply looking at the labels whether those garages were constructed at a time when this code section applied, when it was in effect. I think it's quite clear from the plain text that the word usable was intentionally inserted in this code section, and to state the obvious, space that's occupied by something else that's immovable is not usable for parking. And so I believe that this condition, I hope, will be not, that the applicant can satisfy with drawings that make clear the compliance, but if that is not possible with the current drawings, then the applicant can certainly seek a variance with the city's Board of Adjustment. Those are my reasons.
Any other discussion of Amendment 2?
Well, I have a clarification question, Commissioner Hunter, and that is, are you asking for it to have the square footage as well as the specific 9 by 18 measurement?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Because they had stated yesterday that the spaces were 162, but they're clearly not 9 by 18 in those spaces that have columns. So we do need both in order to be code compliant, is that right? Or variance for that?
Yes,
Okay.
the language of the section.
So, that's a friend, you want to restate your motion? Is that a request for a friendly amendment to your motion? Do you want to, so the record is clear exactly what the motion is?
The motion should be that each space shall consist of not less than 162 square feet of usable area, and the dimension shall be not less than 9 feet in width and 16 feet in length. That is the language of the code. 18, I'm sorry. 9 feet in width and 18 feet in length. That is the language of the code section, and I'm simply repeating that language in this motion.
Any other discussion? Ready for a roll call vote for the second amendment, please?
Okay. Roll call vote regarding the motion regarding parking space sizes as proposed by Commissioner Hunter. Commissioner Ellison?
Yes, I vote yes. I believe this is a reasonable request.
Commissioner Davis?
I vote yes also. I think it's important that the underground parking spaces, with all the other issues with the garage, at the very least meet the stated requirements in the code itself. So I vote yes.
Commissioner Hunter?
I vote yes for the reasons I stated.
Commissioner Strange?
I vote yes for the reasons stated, and also the fact that although the pictures are very nice, and I'm sorry Mr. Forston had to do that, but I think it's irrelevant whether previous building inspectors didn't understand the plain language interpretation of the code, regardless of anything else that took place. So I vote yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
I vote yes for the reasons stated.
Commissioner Stockdale?
I also vote yes. For the reasons stated and for the fact that this is simply a requirement that someone satisfy what is plainly set forth in the code.
Myself, Commissioner Dewey, I vote yes for all of the reasons stated by my colleagues. Commissioner Gay?
I vote yes for all the reasons stated.
I would like to make one more comment. Having looked very briefly at these photographs that Mr. Forston has provided, I don't know the background of many of the properties, but I certainly do know the background of the Henlopen condominium and the Edgewater house, both of which were built many years before the code was, parking requirements in the code were adopted. And the photograph of that's labeled Henlopen condominium is in fact a photograph of parking that belongs to the hotel.
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes, I vote yes for the amendment. I think it was described in some testimony yesterday that you really have one chance to get this right, and that is before you pour the concrete. So I think this will encourage the applicant to make sure that this is correct. Dimensionally, it is correct before they begin to construct the underground parking.
Commissioner Bryan, the vote is complete. All had voted in favor.
Very good. Are there any other amendments?
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear.
Yes, are there any other amendments?
Thank you. Yes, I would move to amend the motion to approve the site plan application to add a condition regarding a second loading berth for the hotel project. The amendment would read as follows, quote, because City Code Section 270-36 requires 2 loading/unloading berths for this project, 1 for a hotel of the size proposed, and 1 for a building with retail use in excess of 15,000 square feet. The applicant shall, as a condition of this approval, either 1, add a second loading/unloading berth in an amended site plan for the commercial retail use, or alternatively, 2, obtain a variance from the requirements of City Code Section 270-36 from the city's Board of Adjustments.
You've heard the amendment. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Commissioner Hunter. Any discussion?
Well, I'd like to give my reasons for
Please do.
seeking this amendment, and it won't surprise you that there's more than one. First of all, Section 270-36 of the zoning code requires a second loading berth for a building that includes retail or other commercial use in excess of 15,000 square feet. The applicant's site plan includes 26,411 square feet of retail designated space on the first floor of the complex. Section 270-36 provides in relevant part that no building to be used in any district for uses specified in the following table shall be erected unless loading/unloading berths are provided on the premises in accordance with the requirements of the following table. The table then requires a separate loading berth for retail or service establishment or other commercial use with over 15,000 square feet of gross floor area in commercial districts. Note carefully the precise language of Section 270-36. The preceding code section, 270-35, sets forth specific parking requirements for each residential unit, each hotel rental room, each office space with 400 square feet of gross floor area, each restaurant with more than 10,000 square feet, and each retail store or service establishment with more than 15,000 square feet. In contrast, Section 270-36 does not limit the loading berth requirements to each, to any, or even to a retail use in excess of 15,000 square feet. Instead, Section 270-36 sets forth a generic loading berth requirement for any building that includes retail or commercial use in excess of 15,000 square feet. If the drafters of Section 270-36 had wanted to limit or had intended to limit the loading berth requirement for each individual retail establishment of more than 15,000 square feet, they certainly knew how to do it, given their drafting of the parking requirements in the preceding section, 270-35. Secondly, the building inspector's June 28, 2023 letter to the applicants provides no zoning code or historical precedent support for the applicant's position that only a single loading berth is required to serve the hotel. As a general matter, Section 270-32A provides that the building inspector's opinion under the code is preliminary, and as a matter of law, it is not binding on the Planning Commission. However, any opinion, whether it's from the building inspector or any other, a member of the public or a member of city or the applicant, requires a reasonable basis of fact and law for the opinion. As the building inspector acknowledged yesterday, there is no language in Section 270-36 of the zoning code that explicitly limits the loading berth requirements to each retail or other commercial use exceeding 15,000 square feet. Instead, the code aggregates the retail or commercial uses in a given building and requires a loading berth when those uses overall total 15,000 square feet. In the case of the building inspector's statement in the June 28, 2023 letter, there's also no reasonable basis or support for the statement that one loading dock is necessary for the hotel project. The building inspector similarly acknowledged yesterday that he had been unable to identify any city building with aggregate retail and/or commercial uses in excess of 15,000 square feet for which the requirement of a loading berth had been waived or ignored. Thus, the June 28, 2023 letter from the building inspector advising that only one loading berth is required for the hotel provides no evidentiary support, either factual or legal, for the applicant's position that a second loading berth is not required to serve the hotel's 26,411 square feet of retail use. Thirdly, historical precedent, however, does support requiring a second loading berth for the more than 26,000 square feet of retail space in the hotel complex. There is a building, as we have discussed in prior meetings, in the middle of the city's commercial district that has a loading berth for multiple small retail and other commercial uses that individually are less than the 15,000 square feet, but in the aggregate clearly total more than 15,000 square feet. That building, as we know, is the First Street Station complex at the southeast corner of Rehoboth Avenue and First Street, which has a loading berth to serve a variety of retail and other commercial uses, including a restaurant, none of which exceed 15,000 square feet. Thus, there is clear historical precedent for requiring a separate loading and unloading berth for a building such as the Belhaven Hotel that will have, according to the site plan, over 26,000 square feet of relatively small retail units. Fourth, Section 236-30E of the Site Plan Review Code requires the Planning Commission to consider a number of factors that bear on public safety issues regarding to provision of a second loading berth. The section includes following factors that are relevant to the access to a loading dock for the hotel complex at the top of Wilmington Avenue. Those factors include motorized and non-motorized vehicular traffic flows on both on-site and off-site, access to structures, access to public and private streets, easements, or other rights-of-way, pedestrian movements, fire equipment and other emergency access, streetscape, and impact on nearby properties or the neighborhood as a whole. I realize, and I do understand that one of my fellow commissioners believes that a single loading dock might be safer, for reasons I don't totally understand. However, the city's traffic consultant has provided a report identifying freight delivery trucks as safety issues for both vehicular and pedestrian traffic on city streets, and there is an abundance of evidence in this record, and we just heard from a member of the public on this subject, another member of the public on this subject, concerning current problems with traffic flows and pedestrian safety issues caused by delivery vehicles throughout the city, which we can anticipate occurring on both Rehoboth Avenue and Wilmington Avenue. I also understand that the applicant yesterday offered to provide a draft management agreement regarding use of the hotel's single loading berth, which is going to have to serve over 90 hotel rooms, a full-scale restaurant, a bar, and a convention-related meeting room that will also function as a ballroom for wedding receptions and related activities, plus over 26,000 square feet of retail space. We haven't got that proper, we haven't seen it, but there's no doubt that the city will not be a party to that agreement, nor will it have any direct control over the operations of the single loading dock the applicant is proposing. Moreover, no matter how careful the hotel management will be concerning scheduling of the use of a single loading dock, there is no guarantee that delivery trucks providing goods and items for all those hotel activities, plus the 26,000 square feet of retail space, however it's configured, won't show up at the hotel's single loading berth at an unscheduled time, however that retail space is configured, and thereby creating havoc for both traffic flows and pedestrian safety, pedestrians trying to access the boardwalk and the beach as the trucks wait outside on Rehoboth Avenue and/or Wilmington Avenue for access to the hotel's single loading berth. Finally, the hotel complex has been designed, as the site plan shown, and it has been discussed at a prior meeting, can accommodate 2 loading docks. And the small retail space that's currently shown is adjacent to the single loading dock that applicants are proposing. The response to a comment to that effect at a prior meeting was that the applicant, if it converted that retail space to a second loading dock, would lose revenues. However, there's been no evidence presented as to precisely how much revenue would be lost, or to the extent to which the lost revenue, if there were same, would impact the owner's profit, the hotel owner's overall profitability of the hotel and its related activities and operations. Thus, for all of these and other reasons that are already in the record, I am moving that the Belhaven site plan include a second loading berth within the hotel complex to serve the retail uses, or alternatively, that the applicant seek a variance from the City Board of Adjustments from the loading berth requirements of Section 270-36 of the zoning code.
Any other discussion?
Yes, yes, it has.
Yes, it was already.
So am I, go ahead.
You're
proper to-
recognized.
Okay. I just have brief comments. I agree with all of Commissioner Davis's comments. just two that I would elaborate on a little bit and emphasize. One is the plain meaning of the statute. As Commissioner Davis noted, I think the text is clear. I would add that if one looks at other portions of that same section of the statute, it is, I think, clear that this is a one building, one structure, and therefore appropriate to combine the square footage as Commissioner Davis has outlined. This is a loading berth within a building. It is a building with one roof. The external walls go around the entirety of it. I don't think there is a plausible reading of this other than that this is a building which, given the specifications in the code, requires 2 loading berths. Secondly, I would emphasize that even under the, I think, inappropriately deferential standard that applicants' attorneys urge upon us, with which I do not agree, in terms of relationship to the building inspector's decision, I think that one can reach this conclusion and support this condition because in this particular instance, there isn't a justification for that reliance, apart from whatever arguments one wants to make as a general matter. I think that's evident from Commissioner Davis's recitation of the record, the transcript of the record, and it's evident, Mr. Janus, as we know, did change his mind, and so I guess I would close by saying that I think Mr. Janet got it right the first time.
Anyone else? This is the third amendment. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
This is a roll call vote for the amendment proposed by Commissioner Davis regarding the number of loading and unloading berths. Commissioner Hunter?
I vote yes. Reasons? Oh, I'm sorry. I vote yes for the reasons that I think I just stated in my comments.
Commissioner Strange?
This is an incredibly vexing problem. And I've evaluated this and I've looked at it. And although my learned colleagues and Mr. Forston and other attorneys, you all have reviewed this and each have come up to polar opposite conclusions. And I'm an engineer, not a lawyer, but I do know how to read. And what bothers me is there's a higher level of consideration here, and that is where this hotel happens to be located. And yet, the evaluation you make can actually go either way. It happens to be located at the end of a block. It's a dead-end street, which has its own set of problems, independent of whatever is there. And then the question is having 2 docks, 2 loading berths, and the room to maneuver increase the safety in that area. And the best assessment that I can make based on public safety and how things need to be managed, and Mr. Zell pointed out that there's a series of things that would be done to manage that. Now, how that's managed and who's a party of that, and I think it's very important, it may not be just the management company in the hotel, it may in fact be the city signing up and agreeing to it, which I can't compel the city to do that. So I am really conflicted as to what's the right approach. I think a single dock from a risk perspective, from a scientific perspective, in this location is actually a better option. But I can't vote yes and I can't vote no, so I am forced to abstain for those reasons.
Commissioner Stewart?
I vote yes, and I vote yes simply because it does say no building to be used in the city and then it sets forth the requirement. This is a building with a hotel and 26,000 of commercial space. I would say, Mike, I don't think what you say is, you made a comment, you don't think 2 increases the safety. But if you believe it's required by the code, then the question is, do you think 2 decreases the safety? Because certainly pulling trucks in and getting them off the street, they're already driving on our roads, which has inherent risk. But tucking them away while things happen as opposed to backing up on the street, which seemed to me to be a safer proposition. I'm not an engineer, but I'm voting yes because I believe the code is clear. Mr. Zell yesterday pointed to the impermanence of the configuration of the bays. So when the decision leaves here, in terms of whether it's, their argument is they're all little units and none of them are beyond 15,000 square feet. That could change day 2 after the hotel opens in the commercial space. So this says building, the building has commercial use of 26,000 feet. It has a hotel, it needs 2 loading docks. I vote yes.
All right.
Commissioner Davis.
I vote yes for all the reasons that I stated initially, and also in support of comments from Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Hunter.
Commissioner Ellison.
Yes, I vote yes for all of the reasons, particularly those stated by Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Stockdale.
I too vote yes for all of the reasons that have been stated previously, especially those stated by Ms. Davis. I could not supplement that argument. I do want to add for the record that I am very much concerned about pedestrian safety, traffic safety, aesthetics too. 1 versus 2 unloading docks. I think the condition we have attached is true to the code, and it affords the applicant another venue to have the issue further scrutinized and analyzed from a different perspective. And if there are additional considerations that can be brought to bear to ease some of the concerns that I think fundamentally go to our view of what's good for the community, the Board of Adjustment will capitalize on that and take those views into account. Thank you.
Okay. Myself, Commissioner Dewey, I found this to have been a very challenging question to work my way through for many of the same reasons that Commissioner Strange outlined. But what I find compelling are the descriptions put out this afternoon, primarily by Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Davis, and therefore I'm voting in favor of the motion for the reasons outlined by those 2 commissioners. Commissioner Gay.
Yeah, I vote yes for the reasons stated earlier, and I just want to say that my primary concern, first of all, the code has been previously interpreted by the city when requiring a loading berth for First Street Station, and therefore it is certainly not within our authority to reinterpret the code. So the appropriate, and by doing so, we would set a new precedent, which I do not believe we have the right to do. I have asked throughout the discussion on this, and it is a tough issue. I'll be the first to admit that I have very mixed feelings about what should actually be there and how it should be run, and I would like for the owners to have flexibility, and I believe through this amendment that they do. But throughout the process, I had asked Mr. Janis if there was going to be one building permit, and he has confirmed numerous times, and as others have stated today, it is one building permit, it is one building. Therefore, once again, I feel that we do not have the flexibility to change that. But at the same time, what I like about this amendment is that it provides opportunity for relief of the applicants, as Mr. Stockdale just stated, by going to the Board of Adjustment.
Commissioner Bryan.
Yes, I vote yes. I agree with the statutory analysis of Commissioners Hunter and Davis. I also think that this is an appropriate exercise under the City Code of the Planning Commission's rights to attach conditions to an approval of a site plan.
Commissioner Bryan, we have a vote of 8 in favor and 1 abstention, so the motion carries.
All right, amendment number 4. Is there another amendment to this generic motion?
Yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
Continuing in roughly the same topic, I propose the following amendment. As a condition of this approval, the motor vehicle entrance to the proposed loading, unloading, berth, and trash room area shall be actively managed, including by way of a signed enforceable master loading dock management and schedule agreement approved by the City of Rehoboth and applicable to deliveries or pickups to and from the hotel and commercial spaces, so as to ensure that delivery and waste management vehicles, 1, will not protrude onto the sidewalk, 2, will not park on Wilmington Avenue or adjacent streets while waiting for access to a loading, unloading berth, and 3, otherwise will not negatively impact pedestrian safety or vehicular traffic or parking. Is there a second?
Is there a second?
I second.
So I would just like to state that this is a condition that's independent from the one that we just discussed. I believe that it is less controversial than the one that we just discussed. I believe that it is necessary regardless of the condition that we just discussed. And that I think we are united in wanting to take advantage of the proffer of cooperation that made by Mr. Zell, and by simply maximizing the kind of logistical efficiency that one can achieve through active management, regardless of the number of loading berths, and with respect also to any other kinds of deliveries and pickups. I think we're all concerned about traffic, we're all concerned about safety, and about the particular location of this hotel. So on that basis, I move this condition.
Is there a second?
Already been done.
Oh, has
Sorry,
that-
was I dead?
Lost track, sorry. Discussion, any discussion?
I was the second.
I think Jim Ellison. Oh, no, John Dewey, right, sorry.
All right, any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
This is a roll call vote for the amendment regarding management plans for the motor vehicle entrance and the loading and unloading berth and trash room. Commissioner Davis.
I vote yes in favor of the amendment. I just want to make clear, my fondest hope is that this all works as well as Mr. Zell and the team, Mr. Papajohn and his family would like it to work. Hopefully, a motor vehicle agreement with respect to access, whether it's to the parking garage or the loading docks or whatever, can be developed, and that management will be more successful for the Belhaven project than I think a lot of us have experienced with other such situations. But as I say, go for it, and I hope it works. So I'm sorry, I vote yes.
Commissioner Hunter.
I vote yes for the reasons I stated.
Commissioner Strange.
I also vote yes for, in complete accord and agreement with my associates.
Commissioner Stewart.
I vote yes. You know, we're very concerned about the motor vehicle traffic on, particularly on Wilmington, and are grateful for the offer of the oversight. And so I vote yes for this.
Commissioner Ellison.
I vote yes for the reason that I believe that this is necessary, and also because the management team has already basically said this is essential anyway. So I vote yes.
Commissioner Stockdale.
I too vote yes. I believe this as a condition that is not only necessary, but a condition and a requirement that members of this commission, as well as the proponent of this project, have already recognized. So to me, it is a condition which is fully embraced by all of us.
Myself, Commissioner Dewey, I'm voting in favor of this proposal. I do appreciate that the management team recognizes that a management plan is in fact a necessity due to the complexities of traffic and pedestrians and what that neighborhood looks like on a hot July morning, just for the liability purposes and human and vehicle safety. That's going to be a key component. So I vote yes for those reasons. Commissioner Gay.
I vote yes, and especially endorse the statements just made by Commissioner Stockdale and Dewey in approving it. I will say that not only am I pleased that this came up in discussions and the idea came from the applicant's management team, but I hope that it sets a new precedent, a new standard citywide for other projects.
And Commissioner Bryan.
Yes, I vote yes for the reasons articulated by my compatriots. I think it's a good idea. I think the management team should be applauded for what they have proposed, and I hope it works.
Commissioner Bryan, the motion carries with all yes votes.
Thank you, sir. Any additional amendments?
Yes, I would like to amend the motion to approve the site plan application to add a condition concerning the limitations in Section 270-21B5 regarding the gross residential floor area of the hotel's residential floors to certain percentages of the hotel's gross lot area. The condition would read as follows, quote, because the gross floor area of the second floor of the proposed hotel exceeds the requirement in Section 270-21B5 that no single residential floor of the hotel may exceed 75% of the gross lot area, and because the average gross floor area of the second through fourth floors of the proposed hotel exceeds, excuse me, I'm sorry, I can overhear what you're saying, cannot exceed 50% of the gross lot area, even excluding the areas exclusively devoted to a meeting room and no other purpose. The applicant shall either, 1, obtain a variance from the city's Board of Adjustment regarding the 75% gross floor area restrictions for a single residential floor, and the 50% gross floor average for all residential floors, both of which limitations are in Section 270-21B5, or alternatively, to the extent the applicant contends that the notice of decision of the city's Board of Adjustment dated January 24th, 2022, approving a 3.0 variance implicitly included an additional variance from the gross floor area restrictions for residential floors in that section. The applicant shall obtain an express written confirmation from the city's Board of Adjustment to that effect.
Right, you've heard the amendment. This is amendment number 5, I believe. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Stewart, any discussion?
Well, I'd just like to make it clear what my reasons for this amendment, which I think is compared to others that have been made or might be made, is very straightforward. The site plan clearly, the numbers with the site plan violate the provisions of Section 270-21B5 that limits the gross floor area of the hotel's residential floors. That section states that the gross floor area of any one residential floor shall not exceed 75% of the gross lot area. It also states that the average of the gross floor area of all residential floors shall not exceed 50% of the gross lot area. The gross lot area of this property is 38,475 square feet. Thus, 75% of the gross lot area is 28,856 square feet, and 50% of the gross lot area is 19,238 square feet. The site plan that we are approving today shows that the second floor of the hotel complex is 32,250 square feet. This is 84% of the gross lot area, not the 75% as required by the code. The site plan also shows that the average of the 3 residential floors is 25,042 square feet, which is 65% of the gross lot area, not the 50% required by the code. The applicant has claimed that Section 270B5B provides an exemption from these square footage restrictions for meeting rooms. I'm sorry, it's allergies. And that its plan includes meeting room space of 5,000 square feet, which should be excluded from the gross residential floor area calculations. However, as a threshold matter, this exemption only applies to the 50% average limit for all residential floors. It does not apply to the 75% limit for a single residential floor. Further, the exemption from the 50% limit, thank you, only applies to meeting rooms that are used exclusively for and for no other purpose than convention facilities. Moreover, the site plan also shows that the so-called meeting space will be used not just as a meeting facility, but also as restrooms. It also includes restrooms, pre-function areas, housekeeping and storage areas, and balcony terrace space, all of which will be available to hotel staff as well as to hotel and outside guests, including patrons of the adjacent restaurant. Thus, the meeting room space does not even meet the exclusion requirements for the 50% requirement, much less the 75% limitation of floor area ratios for this hotel. But in addition, the applicant has claimed that the city's Board of Adjustment has already granted an implied variance from these limitations, and that an additional implied variance from these gross floor area limitations. However, if that's the case, that must be confirmed. It is one of the standing principles in terms of what the Board of Adjustment does as a matter of law. The Board of Adjustment is the applicant's request for the FAR variance did not mention, and the Board of Adjustment's January 24th, 2024 decision did not mention, much less grant, any additional variance from the gross residential floor limits of 270-21B5. However, it's well established that the scope of a Board of Adjustment variance decision is limited both to the specific variance requested and the specific variance granted. Here, the applicant is relying on language from a subsequent Board of Adjustment variance decision that granted the owners of a different property an increase in FAR for a different hotel project. Language from that earlier unrelated decision cannot be read into the language from that later unrelated decision cannot be read into the hotel's earlier FAR variance request or the Board of Adjustment's decision in response to that request. Thus, if the applicant intends to rely on its implied variance claim, it needs to go back to the Board of Adjustment and obtain written express confirmation that its January 24th, 2022 variance decision for the Belhaven Hotel also included a variance from the gross residential floor area restrictions in Section 270-21B5. And those are my reasons.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
I have a comment. So when this came up a year and a half or 2 years, whenever it came up, I went and looked at all the material related to the Board of Adjustment application for the relief. It was very plainly stated. It was relief from 2.0 FAR, full stop. I also watched the whole hearing, and nothing in it suggests that anything but relief from 2.0 FAR was requested, and in the order, in fact, is very plainly stated what relief was given. I do agree with the comments of Commissioner Davis. It's the meeting room language. It says used exclusively as a meeting room, so it has to be included in this, can't be excluded. And the second floor is 84% of FAR. So it can't be. It either needs to come within 75% of FAR, and the average needs to be 50. So I think it's clear that we can't approve it without a condition that the Board of Adjustment make a ruling on this.
All right. Anyone else? Could I have a roll call vote, please? This is amendment number 5.
Roll call vote on amendment number 5 regarding GFA. Commissioner Strange?
This obviously is a very complex issue, but I agree with the analysis as discussed over the last several minutes by my colleague, so I vote yes.
Commissioner Stewart?
I vote yes for the reasons I just stated.
Commissioner Hunter?
I vote yes for the reasons stated by Commissioners Davis and Stewart. And I would emphasize that this, like several of the conditions, is one that if the applicants disagree and they say they have obtained this, it should be relatively easy to obtain a written confirmation from the Board of Adjustment to that effect. And I vote yes.
Commissioner Davis?
I vote yes for the reasons that both myself and Commissioner Stewart and Commissioner Hunter have stated.
Commissioner Ellison?
I vote yes. I think the statements made by the 3 commissioners are accurate and on target, and I also feel that this probably should be an easy action by the Board of Adjustment. So I vote yes.
Commissioner Stockdale?
I vote yes also. I think in reading Code 270-21B5, it is very clear that the FAR and average gross floor area percentage limitations are different requirements. I would highlight that the condition that is imposed merely is asking the developer to go back to the body that they believe already has approved this. I think maybe even hope they do approve it, but I want to say it is not within our power to assume the prerogatives and the function of the Board of Adjustment. And I think in this case, they have not spoken to this issue. The code provisions are clear, and the condition that has been attached is entirely appropriate.
Commissioner Dewey, myself, similar to Commissioner Stewart, I had some time ago reviewed the videotape of that original Board of Adjustment meeting. Compared to the level of depth that has been occurring in this discussion, the discussions at the Board of Adjustment hearing were really quite surface and did not really dive into this level of detail and consider the if-then scenarios. We have looked at a number of different issues in the development of this building where if you do A, then X, Y, and Z may happen and have to be considered. That discussion did not occur at the Board of Adjustment hearing where the variance was granted. And for those reasons, I am voting in favor of this motion. Commissioner Gay.
Yeah, I vote in favor of it for the reasons my colleagues have stated, but I would also just like to add another sort of how I think we got here, and I agree with what Commissioner Dewey just said about the Board of Adjustment hearing in, what was it, November 21, was very general in nature, and it was, in that case, in that sense, highly unusual for Board of Adjustment hearings. Usually, applicants come to the Board of Adjustment with very specific plans and a very specific request. In this instance, the plans hadn't been finalized yet. They weren't going to be finalized for some months after. So essentially, the applicant got an allowance, not anything specific, but an allowance of 3.0, which they've put to good use. But it should be no surprise that a clarification of a further point of that allowance might be necessary. And again, I would hope that would be an easy step.
And Commissioner Bryan.
Yes, I vote to approve as well for the reasons given by my colleagues. Also, I think that the premise that has been put forward here by the applicant, that there is an implied variance in what the Board of Adjustment granted in this particular case, it's a novel concept, and I think it's creative, and I applaud them for giving it a try, but there are no limits or there's no guidance about where that stops and where that starts. So I think as such, a limitation is necessary, or a condition at least, that they go back to the Board of Adjustment for clarification or a new variance.
Right. Commissioner Bryan, the vote carries with all in favor.
Thank you. Other amendments?
Yes, I have a further amendment, very briefly. This relates to the storage of refuse. My understanding is that this is almost in the framework of a stipulation, but my amendment is as follows. To the extent that refuse containers are placed outside the proposed structure, including for trash pickup, as a condition of this approval, such refuse containers shall be screened as required by City Code Section 270-27. In support of that, I would note that Mr. Zell proffered yesterday that he did not anticipate there would ever be refuse containers placed outside the hotel. And this, of course, refers to the entire structure, but I think the sense is the same. So I'm hopeful this is a non-controversial condition, but I think it needs to be stated so that it continues to apply regardless of who is the owner of the property at any particular point.
This is amendment number 6. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Dewey, a roll call vote, please.
Okay. Commissioner Stewart?
I support the amendment simply because the code requires it.
Commissioner Strange?
I vote for the amendment, and this is really kind of a belt and suspenders kind of issue, because in the Bowler documentation that's been provided to us, which is part of the plan, it explicitly states that no refuse will be placed. Everything will be contained internal to the hotel. Even the other businesses, they will cease and desist in putting their refuse out. Independently, it all has to go through the hotel, essentially to the area that's called the loading dock area. So I vote in favor of it.
Commissioner Hunter?
I vote in favor for the reasons I stated.
Commissioner Davis?
I vote in favor for the reasons my colleagues have stated.
Commissioner Ellison,
Yes, I vote in favor for the reasons stated.
Commissioner Stockdale,
I vote in favor for the reasons stated. I also note this was discussed yesterday. There was a full consideration of this issue, and the applicant acknowledged it was not their intent to place any refuge outside, but if they did, they fully recognize the code requires the area to be screened.
Commissioner Dewey, myself, I vote in favor for the reasons outlined by my colleagues. Commissioner Gay
I vote in favor. I concur with my colleagues.
and Commissioner Bryan.
I vote in favor as well. I concur with my colleagues' opinions, and after all, this is what the city code requires.
Okay, the motion carries with all in favor.
Any other amendments?
Yes.
Mr. Stockdale?
With respect to the proposed railings, as a condition of this approval, I propose that the applicant shall either amend the site plan so as to bring the proposed railings into compliance with City Code 270-20, or obtain a variance from the height restrictions of City Code 270-20 by the city's Board of Adjustment regarding the height of the proposed railings. Again, this was an issue we discussed yesterday. Code Section 270-20 limits the height of buildings and structures to 42 feet. I understand the importance of railings for safety considerations. So I think there is good reason to have them, but I think it is very clear that to place them on the roof, a variance needs to be obtained.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
This is a roll call vote regarding the amendment for height of proposed railings. Commissioner Gay.
I vote in favor of it. We discussed it at the meeting yesterday, and I think it does need a variance from the height restrictions.
Commissioner Dewey, myself, I support this for the reasons just outlined by Commissioner Stockdale. Commissioner Stockdale.
I vote in favor for the reasons stated.
Commissioner Ellison.
I vote in favor, recognizing that I do believe that a variance is required.
Commissioner Davis.
I vote in favor for the reasons that my colleagues have stated.
Commissioner Hunter.
I vote in favor for the reasons stated.
Commissioner Strange.
I vote yes in favor for the reasons previously stated by my colleagues.
Commissioner Stewart.
I vote yes for the reasons previously stated.
And Commissioner Bryan.
I vote yes for the reasons previously stated.
Commissioner Bryan, the motion has carried with all in favor.
Are there other amendments? This would be amendment number 8.
Yes, I propose another amendment also dealing with height. This one addressing the proposed planters. To the extent the proposed planters depicted in the drawings on the roof of the structure are permanently affixed to the roof, as a condition of this approval, applicant shall either remove the planters or obtain a variance from the height restrictions of City Code Section 270-20 by the city's Board of Adjustment regarding the height of the planters. Again, we talked about this yesterday. The planters do extend more than 42 feet above grade, which is the limit for buildings and structures in terms of total height. So I think a variance is required, provided the planters are intended to be permanently affixed to the building. We did not discuss that. I don't know whether they are fixtures or removable. The applicant explained their purpose, and I think the purpose is, again, laudable. Again, my view is either an ordinance is needed if they are permanently affixed, or a variance is needed if permanently affixed, and that is what this condition would require.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Calling the roll for the proposed amendment regarding planter heights. I'll begin, Commissioner Dewey speaking for myself. I will vote in favor of this amendment, as it would appear that a variance would be required in order to exceed established building heights. Commissioner Stockdale.
I vote in favor for the reasons stated.
Commissioner Ellison.
I vote in favor because I believe a variance is required.
Commissioner Davis.
I agree with Commissioner Ellison and with Commissioner Stockdale and vote in favor.
Commissioner Hunter.
I vote in favor for the reasons stated by Commissioners Stockdale, Dewey, and Ellison.
Commissioner Strange.
I vote in favor for all the reasons stated, and I think this is a straightforward height dimensional issue per code.
Commissioner Stewart.
I vote in favor. I concur with the reasons stated, and particularly with Mr. Strange's comments.
Commissioner Gay.
I vote in favor for the reasons stated by my colleagues, especially Commissioner Strange and Commissioner Stewart.
And Commissioner Bryan.
I vote yes, again, for the reasons stated by Commissioner Stockdale and my colleagues, other colleagues.
Okay, Commissioner Bryan, the motion regarding an amendment regarding the height for the planters has carried with all in favor.
Thank you. Any other amendments?
Yes, I have a couple.
All right, Mr. Strange.
Yes, I have two. The first one is with regard to the what's called the antenna and the height of it. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. The height of the antenna, which would be roughly 11.5 feet above the top of the proposed cupola, is disproportionate to and incompatible with the architectural massing, composition, and scale and character of the current neighborhood and nearby properties. As a condition of this approval, applicant will either remove it or obtain a variance from the height restrictions of City Code Section 27020 by the city's Board of Adjustment regarding the height of the proposed antenna. And although a variance can be applied for, and that's the prerogative of the applicant, this particular structure is already at a FAR of 3. And by definition exceeds the architectural massing, obviously, of a building with a FAR of 2. The applicant has added a cupola, which is permissible under 27020 of the zoning code, and you're capped at 42 feet, except there's an exception for a dome, spire, cupola, belfry, chimney, or pinnacle, serving as an architectural embellishment, which can't be over 10% of the building's ground floor area. The architect has elected to do that, and that's perfectly legitimate, and it's maxed it out at the full 10%. But in those cases, the total height can now not exceed 50 feet. But there's another exception, and that is another element described as an antenna is mounted on the top of the cupola. And if described as an antenna, there is no explicit limit as to its height. However, if there's a flag on it, it's now a flagpole, which is limited and does violate the zoning code height limits. However, notwithstanding the linguistic vagueness as to these design elements, the massing, when combined together, does represent an excessive massing. And one of the objectives that we were supposed to evaluate is the protection of architectural massing, composition, and scale, and character of the neighborhood, and 2, compatibility of new construction and structural alterations with the existing scale and character of nearby properties. although there may be disagreement on this issue, we as a planning commission can't unilaterally make decisions that disregard the code. And I believe as currently represented, this design does require a variance which can be applied for to the Board of Adjustment. However, an overriding factor here, which is why I made this amendment, is in the main paragraph at the beginning of the Comprehensive Development Plan, which we are constantly reminded has the force and effect of law. We're the only state in the United States that has that. And it says specifically, maintaining the balance will require a commitment that future development and redevelopment, both residential and commercial, reflect and be compatible with the city's existing neighborhoods as well as commercial districts, particularly regarding building height, architectural character, and pedestrian orientation. So something that's already been approved to have greater mass, greater height, with the FAR differential, I think creates a real problem, and therefore we can't approve it. But in fact, if the applicant wishes, they can get a variance to have that done with regard to the antenna. Thank you.
Okay, this would be amendment number 9, and I need a second, please.
I second.
Any discussion?
I have, oh, go ahead, Jim. Well, I think, in fact, it's incorrect to call this an antenna because the code talks about stealthing wireless communication. Mr. Forston said this is not a wireless communication device, or Mr. Zell. So I take issue with this being characterized as an antenna, and the architect, when pressed, after presenting the historical context for this, said it's an embellishment, but we just had to call it an antenna when you called it out. This is a big project, apropos of the conversation, the comments of Mr. Strange. And I just think it's not compelling to me that trying to evoke a building that was last here 62 years ago is important enough to try to sort of hoodwink your way into a violation of the height restriction.
Any other discussion?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Ellison.
I have a little bit of a different take on this. I happen to like the architectural embellishment of whatever you choose to call it, antenna or whatever. I do think that it's well-intended. It's a reference to, a historic building. I think it's worthwhile to the project. I really don't think that small element up there dramatically affects the massing or the character of the neighborhood. We used to have a dolly sign that became a very iconic fixture. And it's even possible, I suppose, in my view, that this antenna or architectural feature could end up in the same category. I don't know. I do agree that it requires some visitation by the Board of Adjustment and a possible variance. But I think more than most of the rest of you, I think I'm in favor of having that embellishment. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to add that in a manner very similar to Commissioner Ellison, I would very much like to see that architectural element in place, although there are problems getting it there. If it had been clear from the outset that an operational antenna was a part of the design and it were functional and it were part of whatever technology, perhaps there would be a more clear path forward on this. But regrettably, I don't see that path. In a manner similar to the dolly sign that we all miss, I very much appreciate that the developers of the project were trying to emulate something from the history of the town. I think that it would be possible that in the future that if that could receive a variance, that it could become a sort of iconic symbol of Rehoboth. the way the roof lines are designed and the antenna on top, stealth in the way that is designed, I think that actually could offer something very pleasing as you're coming down the boardwalk. So I'm very conflicted over this, and I'll close my remarks.
May I?
Yes, sir, Mr.
May I make
Strange.
another comment?
Yes, of course.
I happen to agree with my colleagues who disagree with me from the standpoint of, yes, it's iconic. But there's a larger issue, and if I say something that's inappropriate, please stop me. But there have been other applications over the last 2.5 years to the Planning Commission and to the Board of Adjustment who quote this particular application, even before it's been approved, as a justification for what they want to do, which ends up being taller, larger massing than what is, I just read the comprehensive development plan. So it's sort of a spiraling approach. In theory, decisions by the Board of Adjustment for any particular property are limited to that particular property and do not apply to any other application by anybody else. So a person can't say, well, you did it for so-and-so. That has no meaning. It's unique to the property. And yet, as a practical matter, attorneys representing clients that have already come to this organization and have also gone to the Board of Adjustment are doing exactly that. So I am extremely concerned that in essence, what is happening here is it's shredding the law and not paying any attention to it. And so therefore, that's why terminology is extremely important in this case. And I'm still leaving the door open, and it may require further modification by the Board of Adjustment to do this, because I agree with Mr. It is iconic. But the question is it too big versus everything else that was done? Perhaps the cupola should have been a little smaller. I don't know. It's all in perspective with all of the elements. But as is, it's very problematic. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Davis.
I'd like to strongly agree with Mr. Strange's last comments. I have every sympathy and admiration for the desire of the part of the applicants to recreate a hotel that brings us back to where we were, as of 1962, before the big storm. We've seen the pictures. The old hotel is iconic. It did have an antenna, whatever you want to call this thing. But I also am concerned with height limitations. I think they are very important for this community, and I think we need to pay particular attention to when a height issue comes before us. Skyline is critical. The height of the antenna, as I understand it, would be 11.5 feet on top of the proposed cupola, which is already 10 feet above the roof. The height limit for this building, per the code, is 42 feet. We're now up to 61.5 feet, if I've done the math correctly, and I agree with Mr. Strange. You get to the point where it's the camel's nose under the tent. What is the next architect going to propose, the next applicant? And so you have this sort of creep with these buildings getting taller and taller because it's all by way of architectural embellishments or, reminiscences of the past, whatever. And for that reason, I'm going to vote in favor of this because I think it is very important to maintain height limits as per the code unless there is some really compelling reason to exceed them. And finally, I would remind everybody that the original Belhaven Hotel was only 2 stories. A cupola and an antenna on a 2-story building is a very different animal or animals than a cupola and for 10 feet and an antenna of 11.5 feet on top of a 42-foot building. So as I say, I'm going to vote in favor of this.
All right. Anyone else? Roll call vote, please. Oh, Mr. Ellison.
I just want to say that I am sure that language, if the Board of Adjustment wanted to approve this, there could be language added that ties this only to the iconic historic Belhaven, so that it does not become a precedent.
Wouldn't anyway if it was Board of Adjustment.
No, I think my understanding is that Board of Adjustment decisions do not have precedents, do not create precedential
Okay, fine.
decisions that bind other applicants or bind that board as to future applications.
But you're talking about practically, what in practical, what happens practically is everyone points to, like, one Rehoboth.
Of course.
So, I guess the point, Jim, is that adding that provision or the language that binds it to one applicant is redundant to what already exists legally.
And I would add that we have spent a fair amount of time throughout these proceedings talking about and referring to historical precedent where, for particular aspects of this Belhaven project. What has the city done with respect to other projects, other hotels in the past? And which discussions apparently tend to have some legal relevance in terms of the decision-making that we're about. So while I realize that the Board of Adjustment's decision per se have no precedential effect, historical precedence has, I wouldn't say dominated, but certainly has been a consideration that we've dealt with for the last umpteen meetings here.
Together with other things. Together with other matters.
Oh, yes.
Anyone else? A roll call vote, please.
This is a roll call vote regarding the motion for an amendment for the height of the proposed antenna. I'll start the roll call with Commissioner Stockdale.
I vote in favor for the reasons stated. I would like to add, if I may, that this has been a long process for the commission members. It's been, I think, even a longer process for Mr. Papa John. When we look at issues like this, it's very clear to me, and I think it's important that the record reflect that we understand the thought and the detail and the expense and the good intentions that have gone into this plan. This issue, like many issues for me, fall into the same type of category where I am bound, as I believe my colleagues are, by what the code requires. And so, like the planters, like the railings, like many other issues, I see rationale, I see reason, I see arguments for what is proposed, but at the end of the day, our lodestar is the city code, and that is what compels me to vote in support of this amendment. Thank you.
Commissioner Ellison.
I vote in support of this principally because it will, as a result of this, go to the Board of Adjustment, which is where it belongs.
Commissioner Davis.
I vote in favor for the reasons previously stated by myself and my colleagues.
Commissioner Hunter.
I vote in favor for the reasons stated, I think, quite eloquently by my colleagues.
Commissioner Strange.
I vote in favor of the amendment based on my observations and also my other colleagues' observations, particularly Mr. Stockdale's, which is, I think, is extremely important, is that we have to follow the code. Thank you.
Commissioner Stewart.
I vote in favor based upon my prior comments and comments of my colleagues.
Commissioner Dewey, myself, I'm going to vote in favor of the amendment as proposed. As I mentioned earlier during the public remarks, I would very much like to have been able to find a way to find a pathway to have the proposed structure on top of the cupola. But as my other colleagues have pointed out correctly, we are bound by code, and the appropriate venue to address this is the Board of Adjustment. Commissioner Gay.
I vote in favor for all the reasons that have been stated by others.
And Commissioner Bryan.
I vote to approve. Well stated by Commissioners Stockdale, Davis, and Mr. Strange. And the Board of Adjustment is there for a reason, and that's where this should go.
Commissioner Bryan, the motion regarding the antenna height has carried with all votes in favor.
Thank you. Are there any other amendments?
I have one last one.
Okay, one, Mr. Strange.
With regard to the solar panel heights, and this is very straightforward. Oh, I'm sorry, doing it again. The proposed solar panels depicted in the drawings on the top of the roof of the structure would appear to exceed the height restriction of the building under City Code Section 270-20, unless the solar panels are placed flat, horizontally on top of the roof. To the extent applicant intends to place the solar panels at an angle to the roof, the solar panels have to be removed unless the applicant obtains a variance from the height restriction of City Code 270-20 by the city's Board of Adjustment. This is very straightforward. The solar panels will still operate if placed flat. They're placed angularly to take advantage of the rising sun, but that doesn't meet the height restriction of the city code with regard to the 42 feet.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Ellison.
Commissioner Strange, I believe if I have read the plans properly, whether the solar panels are on an angle or flat, they still exceed the height limitation.
Okay, I thought at flat they were at 42 feet. I may have.
It does not look like it from my reading of the plans.
Okay.
So maybe
I should amend that to say if they are at 42 feet, then it would be acceptable. If not, then they have to go to the Board of Adjustment.
I would suggest that, yes.
Is there a second to that amendment? Second. Ms. Davis? All right. Now, the amended motion then. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Ellison.
I vote in favor. They exceed, or at least the way it's written, they will require a variance.
Commissioner Davis.
I vote in favor, although I want to commend the applicant for providing solar panels. I think it's something that should be encouraged throughout the city. And I would hope that if the applicant went to the Board of Adjustment, that that variance would be granted.
Commissioner Hunter.
I vote in favor. I join the comments of Commissioner Davis on this point.
Commissioner Strange.
I vote in favor, and based on thankfully my associate's correction, I vote in favor for all the reasons stated.
Commissioner Stewart.
I vote in favor and echo the comments of Commissioner Davis.
Commissioner Stockdale.
I vote in favor and also echo the comments of Commissioners Hunter and Davis.
Myself, Commissioner Dewey, I vote in favor for all the reasons stated by my colleagues. Commissioner Gay.
I vote in favor for all the reasons stated.
And Commissioner Bryan.
Yes, I vote in favor for all the reasons stated by my colleagues.
Commissioner Bryan, the motion carries with all votes in favor.
All right, are there any other amendments? I think we're back to the original motion as amended.
I hope you're not going to make me read the original and all the amendments.
No, I think we have a pretty good memory.
But what are we to do?
A, the record is
Okay.
clear, and B, the vote, the oral vote will be reduced, as we've done in other matters, to a written notice of decision that will be consistent with the proceedings.
Yeah.
And the final action will be effective as of the date of the written notice of decision.
So do I need to amend the original motion to incorporate the amendments?
That's already been done.
Okay, fine, great.
So now,
we
now
vote.
there's further discussion on the
all of them?
amended motion
Okay. Oh, I see, because we really didn't talk about the
as
first
an
one.
entirety.
The entirety, okay.
Is there any discussion on the motion as amended?
I think only to just make some general comments, and as other commissioners have done, as they have made various remarks throughout these proceedings today, there's an awful lot to like about this project. And we need to vote, but I'm hopeful that all of the input that has been given by members of the commission will be used in order to make a more an already very well-designed and cohesive building that much better, and will continue to add to the community of Rehoboth in the future.
All right, anyone else? Let's have a roll call vote on the amended motion.
All right. I'm calling a roll call vote on the amended motion to approve the site plan. I will begin with Commissioner Gay.
Actually, could you come back to me, please? I have some statements, and I'd rather make them toward the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll begin then with myself, Commissioner Dewey. I vote in favor of the amended motion. Commissioner Stockdale.
You
I
should
have to
give your
state my
reasons for why you're voting for the entire motion as amended.
I'm voting in favor of the entire motion as amended because it is my opinion that the amendments as presented and as discussed correct identified deficiencies in the plan. I am hopeful that if the developer does choose to take the things which require variances forward to the Board of Adjustment, that they will be successful, and this will result in a better project for the community. Commissioner Stockdale.
I vote in favor of the amendment for the reasons that Commissioner Dewey stated, and for the simple reason that I think the amendments that have been added are all driven by code requirements and are necessary to fulfill what the commission is required to do as it carries out its responsibilities.
Now, Mr. Stockdale, did you mean that you're voting for the motion as amended?
The motion as amended. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Ellison.
I vote for the motion as amended. I feel that the Planning Commission has really done its job well, and I also want to echo Commissioner Dewey's original comments here about the excellence of the project. I think it will make a big difference in Rehoboth. I think it has been well handled all along, and all we have been doing, obviously, is our job up here. So that's it.
Commissioner Davis.
I will vote for the motion as amended, and just add, everybody else has said this, but I want to just say it also. It's not easy sitting here dealing with plans into which so much thought, so much money, so much time has been expended. But unfortunately, it's frustrating because, as you know, we, the Planning Commission, cannot change that code. Our job is to enforce it. We cannot grant variances to its provisions. That's the job of the Board of Adjustments. All we can do is look at the plans, look at the code, which has been described as our lodestar, and make decisions accordingly. And I think that as the job we have done, particularly with the amendments, will make this what is a good project to begin with, but will be an outstanding project. And I wish you all the best in bringing it to fruition.
Commissioner Hunter.
Thank you. I vote in favor of the motion as amended. I would like to comment just briefly. We've gotten a lot of public input on this, which is appropriate. It's an important project, and it's at an important location. And we've gotten input to the effect that that I think appreciates the time and effort that we have put into this and the care with which we have taken to review such issues as environment and other traffic safety and other issues. We've also gotten somewhat contrary input and comment to the effect that we should that we've taken too much time or that we have been, too overly concerned with rules. I hope that as a public education matter, that listening to my colleagues today especially, with regard to our views of our proper role, of our role as applying a law rather than simply ignoring parts of it with which we might be less in agreement, that comes through as something that the public wants. The public has a right to have the agency that is charged with applying a law to apply it, and to apply it as fairly and universally as we possibly can to the best of our abilities. The code also provides, as you have heard mentioned many times today, an opportunity for an applicant to secure greater flexibility with regard to particular issues, especially issues as to which there may be a circumstance that would justify greater flexibility with regard to the code. We urge, and some of us have all but begged the applicant to take advantage of that process. That process is there for a reason, and one reason among many that came out in the discussion today was that it allows for certain parts of the code to be, if you will, adjusted without creating a precedent. We all know that there will be future applications for future structures. And for the members of the public who are especially oriented to having a public body that focuses on the broader impact of such proposals, I hope that they will consider that we have not been wasting time, that we have had 7 sets of plans to consider as this process has gone forward, and that we have taken our time and tried to the best of our ability to consider what is in the interest of the public with respect to the fair application of the code. There is a process to seek adjustments. If the applicant, which has every right to make whatever decision they want, if the applicant chooses to follow that. I believe that the result in the form of the motion as amended is an excellent result. I hope it results in an excellent new hotel, subject to the conditions that we have identified. For those reasons, I vote in favor.
Commissioner Strange.
I vote in favor of the amended motion, and I would like to say that Mr. Perry, who's a member of the audience, pointed out that this has been before us for almost 5 years. For 4.5 of those years, the plans kept changing, and that's okay. But we can't decide until we have final plans, substantially complete plans. And those plans still are not substantially complete, but they're substantially complete enough that we could at least get to this point and evaluate it. Over the last 12 months, I have spent in excess of 400 hours evaluating just this plan. That is done because, one, I love the city of Rehoboth Beach, and I do not want to commit and do things that are incorrect or inappropriate that violate the code accidentally. The applicant deserves the full analysis based on the best technology and intellectual capacity that we have as a board. And as a board, we are composed of many different specialties and backgrounds. And that technique, and I don't want to get academic, but I think it's important to point out, it's called the Delphi technique. And in the world of analytics, that means that you take a variety of highly educated people in very different disciplines. And referring back to the Greek of the Oracle of Delphi, who had the ability to see the future. We can't see the future, but we can analyze it based on statistical techniques, capabilities, and skill sets that leads to a better outcome. And that's what we do. It's a systems approach. You don't rely on just one person who says, oh yeah, I think it's great, go do it, when they don't have the slightest idea what they're talking about. Sounds like most politicians. We are not politicians. We are technical experts in each of our respective fields, and that's what we do. And hopefully, all this work has resulted in that. And I would point out, even as of April, we're still getting input that modifies this plan. So this is a difficult task. It's been a moving target that keeps moving, and we're supposed to make a decision at a point in time. So I vote in favor of the amended motion.
Commissioner Stewart.
I vote in favor of the amended motion. And I do, though, have a point of clarification for my colleagues, and I think it's a good project. I think the variances we pointed out are necessary. I want to make it clear, though, that I'm on all of those blanket. I'm not necessarily hopeful that they'll be granted in every instance. There are a couple instances where I think it would be great, but I want to make sure we as a body are not sort of endorsing an okay vote at the Board of Adjustment level. It's within their purview to examine whatever the facts and come to their own conclusions. With that, I support the motion as amended.
Commissioner Gay.
I support the motion as amended, and I think the plan for this hotel is a beautiful one, and it will result in a high-quality hotel. I like the design of it very much, always have. But I'd like to use this opportunity to express some thoughts about our code and how we got where we are today with this project. There was a public comment yesterday that we should be more flexible in applying code to this project. And that person cited the comprehensive development plan as justification for that remark. But the flexibility, I went back last night and did a search just to confirm this. The flexibility mentioned in the 2020 CDP is specifically related to the creation of mixed-use zoning for housing purposes. However, beyond that, our code does already have several flexibilities, such as that allowing the gross floor area to go to 75% on one floor of a hotel, where the code provision overall is 50%. But beyond flexibility, the most important aspect of our code is that it is generous. And when I served on the City Commission, I worked with a number of zoning code issues during that time and studied it extensively. And when we were making some changes a few years ago, I had, as part of my presentation, a slide that had some bulleted features of just what our commercial zoning code has. And I'd like to read those bulleted features because I'm not sure everyone realizes just how generous our code is. There are no side setbacks. There are no front setbacks. There are no rear setbacks, except for 5 feet if it happens to be adjacent to a residential property. There are no requirements for open space. There are no special bulk or density regulations for environmentally sensitive areas, such as coastline development. There are no required architectural features. 100% lot coverage is allowed for non-residential and non-hotel uses. There's a 42-foot height limit. It's the highest of any coastal Delaware town. And finally, we have relatively low parking requirements. The bottom line is this hotel could not have been built in any other coastal Delaware town. Our code is more generous than all of the others. But even beyond these generous features, we have another avenue available to the developers of this project, as has been mentioned many times today, and that is the Board of Adjustment can grant a variance when conditions or hardships make it hard to comply with the written letter of the code. But again, some relevant history. I was pleased that Commissioner Strange yesterday reminded us all that the site plan process for the Avenue Inn, where the Planning Commission supported the applicant's request for a variance. These big projects don't come along every day or even every year, although we are starting to see more of them. The two most complex projects previously through site plan review were the Avenue Inn and the new elementary school. And you may not know this, but both of them, so I'll tell the applicants this, just so you won't feel like it's too arduous a process to contemplate the Board of Adjustment. Both of those projects got variances before and during site plan review. So they both went to the Board of Adjustment twice. It did not take months. In fact, the Board of Adjustment meeting was scheduled the following month after the Planning Commission determined it was necessary. So I view the variance conditions that we've established today here as another positive step allowing flexibility. I think the hotel has the potential to be a wonderful improvement for the city, but the last point I want to make is it carries great risk to nearby and not just adjacent property owners. You'll notice today I read dozens of additional approvals that are necessary to protect everyone involved. And as was also mentioned in a public comment today, earlier this week I listened to the hotel owner next to the Beach Patrol project describe the impact of that construction on his business. And all I could think of was the Beach Patrol building is much smaller than the Belhaven, and I'm concerned about the impact of the construction of this hotel on our small business community. We've never had a project of this magnitude. Hearing that property owner the other day made me think the city should better prepare for these types of projects because there are going to be more of them. All I could think of is if I were mayor, I would get the new city manager and I'd create a group of stakeholders consisting of the construction team, Main Street, the communications director, and others, and figure out how to best mitigate the impact to them when a 100,000 square foot building is going up in their midst. And in the final analysis, I believe the approval today with its conditions and additional requirements and approvals strikes a balance between the property owner's rights to develop the property, the requirements of the city code, and the risk created in the process. And I will close by saying I'm in awe of my fellow planning commissioners for the insights and the work they have put into this project. With that, I vote in favor.
Commissioner Bryan.
There's really nothing I can add. I vote to approve the motion as amended and thank everyone who's put in time and effort on this, applicants, the public, and wish you the best. Thank you. Is there anything else, Ms. Womack, that we... Okay, we're adjourned.
5 minutes early, I might add. 10 minutes early almost.